Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. We'll call to order the March meeting of the Binghamton Traffic Board. It is Thursday, March 14th, 2024. The first item of business is approval of the minutes from the February 2024 meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
As amended by our emails?
As amended,
Perfect,
yes.
perfect.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the public comment portion of today's meeting. Anyone here today to address the board, please come up and have a seat. And if you could just state your name and address. Yeah, the light should be green.
It's green now, so it's
Great.
good.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mm.
My name is Robert Wandell. I own a Magic at 39 and 37 Court Street. So been downtown now for 25 years. Doing business down here. Just a couple of things and I had some questions. First, I wanted to thank you guys for doing what you do and for giving the public and me an opportunity to voice concerns about it. Secondly, I want to thank you for I've come with in the past with mostly it's just parking issues and the 2-hour zone. And last time I think I talked here, I talked about some white vans that were parked out there on a regular basis and a few other cars that were parked out there on a regular basis. And because I think of you're focusing on or instructing Casey to give 2-hour tickets and things like that, that seems to have cleared up significantly. It's not over, but the white van started parking somewhere else. The black car that I used to see every single day for 8 hours out there, it doesn't seem to be parking out there anymore, and that's all good. I mean, know that I do this from a place of a business owner that wants parking for all of our businesses, which is what that zone is supposed to be for. It's not for people that live upstairs, not for people that are working 8 hours, and it's not for business owners like me. We should be parking in the ramps. And, you know, you're changing the thing to 2 hours many years ago, helps a lot. It's hasn't fixed everything, but it's fixed a lot. So I did have a couple questions though. Is the position that Mike, I know you guys were looking to fill Mike's position with another person and you had hired someone that didn't work out and you were looking for another one that was a month ago. Has there been any movement on that?
I believe that's still posted. Is that right?
So he's not filled yet? Okay,
We're still in process of interviewing.
okay.
We had 5 applicants so far.
5 applicants, all right, good. Hope we get somebody soon, that would be great. Yeah, that helps a lot to have another, and that's a full-time position, yes? So that would help a lot, because right now we've got Casey, and he seems to be the only one, for the most part, writing tickets. And he works a short period of time every day, so that's the only time that there seem to be tickets being written, and I know he was out for like 10 days with surgery. I don't think any tickets were written during that time. I'm not sure why other police don't write tickets. I mean, every cop has the rights and power and all that to write tickets, but they don't seem to. So when Casey isn't there and there's nobody there, do you assign anybody to write tickets during that, or to check parking at all during that time?
Yeah, the issuing of parking tickets would be part of the regular duties of an officer assigned to that post. There's operational priorities that the officer would have to handle that unfortunately at times comes before parking enforcement. Officers have written tickets on occasion, whether it's a particular complaint or as part of their normal patrol duties. And I know the traffic division has made an additional effort to write in that block in question and do some selective enforcement through that downtown and with the lack of parking for Boscovs as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, because he really needs help down there. That guy does everything he can do in the period of time that he has. He also From my understanding, he has an hour and a half or 2 hour block in the middle of his shift that he has to do crossing guard duty somewhere else. And everybody on the street knows when that block of time is. So they don't pay during that time. They don't pay before he starts. They don't pay after he leaves because he seems to be the only one writing tickets. And I'm looking forward to having another person on enforcing parking out there. The other question I had, has there been any progress towards closing the loophole in the programming, which lets people actually buy time where they shouldn't legally be able to buy time? The idea of, because right now, if you go to the parking meter, the parking kiosk, you can buy 2 hours worth of time, but if you try to buy a third hour after it's expired, it won't let you during, I think, a 24-hour period, as the law states. But if you go on the app, it lets you buy more time. So when they come through, or when Casey comes through, it shows up as being paid, even if they've been there 8 hours again. So that's a loophole that is in the programming, and it's not hard to fix that. It really isn't. It's the same programming that's in the kiosk, and it doesn't have that issue in the kiosk. So a parallel thing to close that would be helpful. Has there been any?
Yeah, we've had conversations with our vendor, with Flowbird, which runs the app for us. We're approaching the point, and I'd have to check exactly when, where the contract with Flowbird would need to be reviewed again.
Okay.
So that is sort of an overarching discussion. The 2 hour parking in general and how it's enforced and how it works on the app, that we would be continuing to look at, particularly when we review the contract and whether we move in a different direction or keep Flowbird on, if it's an issue that they can solve for us.
Right. Well, that would be a great closure of the problem there. Because right now, people, and they know they can do this, they get away with this, they park there all day, every day. It's still happening, nowhere near the level and number of cars that I used to see. It used to be I'd open at 10 and almost nobody else was open, or they all open about 10 o'clock. I'd show up to work, I'd walk from the ramp because that's where I park, and all the spots are taken for, I don't know, obviously not customers, since nobody's really open then. And then about half of those cars would be there the entire day. That problem seems to have been significantly reduced. So I greatly appreciate that. What I'm just looking for is enforcement to create parking spots for customers, for all of us in the economic zone down there. So it's not all about me, and it's not all about, I may be the only one that shows up here to complain about it, but everybody that has a business there needs places for their customers to park. And,
Your complaints are not unheard. There has been days I've heard personally where you have called in parking complaints and that call has pended based on availability. And then they'll dispatch that call when Casey comes on duty, and I'll hear that the complainant was Robert Wandell and that the call has been holding for a half an hour, 2 hours at times. But it's, again, I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you the reality of the operation, where that car that's tied up to that assigned post is committed to other criminal matters or calls for service that are taking priority. So at times I can understand your frustration that it may not be tended to quickly or in a timely fashion, probably from your vantage point, but it is being addressed. And I know he goes out and will take care of it. Or when that postcard frees up, they're going to dispatch that car to respond on that matter. Oftentimes that violator may have moved on. So you're seeing like a lack of action, but
sometimes
there is action on the back end that you might not be seeing. They can't enforce what's not present at the time that they are sent and arrive. And
I
when they
appreciate
are sent, they respond quickly, professionally, and address it. The violation may not be present.
I get that. And it's not lost. I mean, there's a lot of other things happening in the city, and I completely understand that if there's a parking issue and a robbery issue, you're going to let the parking issue slide till you deal with the more important thing. I get that completely. I know you guys have a lot to do. And that occasionally that'll happen. I'll call and I won't get an answer for a few hours or sometimes at all. And I figured that's a bad day for the police department as far as how much work you guys have to handle. As long as that's not that way every single time, and it hasn't been, I'm not unhappy about that. All right. So, and I do appreciate your efforts on it. And that's really all I have to say today. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to do this once a month. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great day.
Mr. Richmond, did you want a public comment? If you could just state your name and title for the record.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin Richmond, and I'm the proud principal of Binghamton High School. I'm here today to reinforce the importance of our student safety. Our collective responsibility is to ensure their safety as they make their way to and from school daily. The urgency of our situation cannot be overstated. The issue was initially raised in February of last year concerning our dismissal procedures. The discussion began around updated signage, a one-way street, and a crosswalk on Oak. These issues were put on last year's February Traffic Board agenda. Then at last year's March Traffic Board meeting, the Bergen County Office of Emergency Management presented, noting the area outside of Binghamton High School had the highest rate of stop arm camera violations in the county. This distressing information highlights the immediate need for improved traffic control and safety measures near our school. Most recently, I personally presented at this past October's Traffic Board meeting around, again, the updated signage, proposal for a crosswalk, and the idea of converting Oak Street into a one-way street during school hours. My plea for your assistance in securing a crosswalk remains urgent. It has now been over a year since this issue was first brought to your attention, and all recently we have received some very high visible safety signs, which we greatly appreciate and want to thank everyone for making that happen. A crosswalk is still crucially needed. I understand this process takes time, but with over a year having passed, I hope we can expedite the steps to address the issue as quick as possible. In my 7 years as principal, I've witnessed students at risk from traffic, has been a recurring fear for myself. Currently, without a designated crosswalk in front of our school, our students are exposed to dangers as they cross busy streets during peak traffic hours, increasing the likelihood of accidents. The traffic congestion around Binghamton High School, especially during drop-off and pickup times, leads to chaotic and hazardous conditions for both pedestrians and drivers. Unlike other schools in the area that have a distinct campus, we do not. We are surrounded by public streets. I please implore the traffic board to act decisively and continuing to discuss the crosswalk and ultimately coming up with a plan to implement. Delaying these measures can risk further incidents or tragically, hopefully we never have a loss of life due to an accident. The well-being of our children should be our priority. I want to thank you again for allowing me to speak today, for the conversations we have, and I hope that we have some action to ensure the safety of our students moving forward. Thank you.
Anyone else here to address the board for public comment? Seeing none, at this time, we will portion of our agenda onto new business. Request first, President had the Matavetsky, would you like to give us the overview on this?
Yeah, so basically I got a call from residents and I'd heard about it when I was canvassing before coming into office, that there's no parking signs and that it's blocking the people from getting their mail. So I reached out to the deputy mayor, got some of the background surrounding the need for fire, ambulance, et cetera, to be able to make the turn onto Rao off of Kane, and that with the two-sided parking, there was it was not easy, and there was some incidents where you had to go all the way around to get to the person you were trying to help, which is why the no parking signs went in. They went in on the side that they did based on fire hydrants being there. But the issue for the people that live on the street is that it means that all the parking is taking place on the side with the mailboxes, and sometimes people aren't getting mail for a week at a time, and people are quite concerned about that. So I did reach out. I flyered every house, and I just gotta pull up my sheet here. I went to every door on the street, and got, feedback on it. I have a sample letter here, of the, from somebody who was, concerned and wants the change. So hello, this is Kimberly Foodie. I own my home at 3 Kane. I hope every day the parking will change to the opposite side. I can't begin to tell you how many times I go days without receiving mail. It's ridiculous. I have numerous conversations with our great mailman who drives and can't park at every house and gets out to get to a mailbox. He has left notes on cars, as I have, with no respect to not park right in front of our mailboxes. Numerous people are upset about this for a long time. It makes zero sense. Please change immediately. I never understood why the signs went up in the first place. And for the people that I was able to interact with at the door as opposed through email, I explained the emergency services need taking priority over parking convenience. Where are people to park besides in front of everyone's mailbox definitely needs a change. So I have a tally sheet. There were some people that were happy with where it is. One of those people resides technically on Woodland, and one of the people owns multiple properties. So I don't know how to count his vote, whether it's 1 vote or 2 votes. But the mail issue is, I mean, one person who really has been very upset by this has actually moved his mailbox. So the mailboxes are in the center of the property, which is like kind of the prime parking space area. So one gentleman actually, and he showed me, and you could see that it's somewhat freshly done, that he's moved his mailbox to the edge right near his driveway, hoping that the mail would get delivered, and it's not. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 people that reached out, that would like it moved. 2 different people that, want it to stay the way it is. One of those people owning 2 properties. So that's what I bring forward.
Did the residents who expressed the signs wanting to say where they are, did they say why?
I think it's because of there's more parking. So because the initial reason for putting the parking the way it was because of the fire hydrants, which means there will be less parking if it's moved across the street. So they gave credence to the initial reason and expressed doubts about people not receiving their mail. Although I have many, many people on that street telling me, no, they have, and seeing the man actually move his mailbox, which is not super easy. It was an elderly gentleman, was pretty strong evidence to me that people are in fact not receiving their mail, because most people would not move their mailbox.
Thank
no
you. Thank
reason.
you for doing that outreach. I appreciate it.
And
So-
and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 addresses. One of those addresses technically being on Woodland that I did not receive response for. So I more than half, and I can pass you the sheet, more than half the people responded, more than half the addresses responded.
Okay, thanks. Share this, just so we can include it. Thank you. Okay, yeah, as President Matavetsky stated, this was something that the traffic board passed. Thank you. Last year in response to a constituent concern that came from Councilman Burns. I have, our office has heard from one gentleman that lives on the street with the same complaint that he'd like to see the signs moved. We hadn't heard anything else beyond that. I have no issue with seeing the signs move to the other side of the street, as long as there's an acknowledgement there that, you know, they will be losing a few on-street parking spaces. But my understanding is that moving it would also help DPW with plow operations, be able to access the cul-de-sac more efficiently.
As long as on Row Ave, we can come back a little bit, so my trucks have enough room to get backed in. It should actually help us.
Okay. Okay,
And one of the other issues that came up while I was going door to door, since that constituent group was not used to no parking signs. They were unsure how alternate side of the street parking works. So there's been a substantial amount of confusion about that. I don't know if we have like pamphlets or something that I can go and give out. But there was definitely kind of confusion and people weren't really sure what to do. I think obviously it's on the website, but there are a number of older folks on that street and it was a big shift for them not having to deal with no parking previously.
Any discussion on this from board members?
Yeah, we currently have, it's a city ordinance that you can't park in front of the mailbox. When we did that, it was also, we did it on the side where there's no fire hydrants. If we do, we're for it, we'll do whatever constituents want, but they have to realize that side it's gonna be impacted. They're gonna have no parking, like, that side with the fire hydrants has one street, that dead end street, that will have to take 2 spots on each side for 30 feet to the corner. There's 2 fire hydrants that it's 4 spots that's gonna take away. As long as they're aware of it, that they're gonna be losing a lot of parking spaces. When we did it, we went out there and just figure out what side is gonna have more on-street parking. That's why we went, and not just the fire hydrant. That's why we went there. And also if you out there and talking to people, once the alternate side kicks in, alternate side supersedes all the other signage. So just so you're aware.
Thank you. And again, for the people that I was able to talk to at the door on this issue, I explained the parking issue and the trade-off that's being discussed. For the people that were emailing, that was a little bit more challenging because it wasn't in real time.
Councilwoman, are you comfortable given what the traffic sergeant just outlined and what you've heard from residents that to make the move, even though they'll be losing on-street parking? Are you hearing that's generally the consensus?
Yes, I believe so. And that street, they have driveways. This is,
Right.
not a densely populated kind of west side situation.
Okay.
I think it will be mostly an issue for people during holiday season when everyone has family visiting. But
Okay. Any further discussion from the board? Okay, if not, I'd look for a motion then to move the no parking signs on Canaan Avenue to the west side of the street as requested and outlined here. Is there a motion?
motion.
Second?
And-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. And thank you again for connecting with the residents there. Okay, next item on the agenda, this is again Kane Avenue and Woodland Avenue. It's a request for no parking here to corner at the southwest corner of Kane and Woodland Avenue to allow visibility when turning left onto Woodland Avenue from Kane Avenue. Sergeant Music, I believe the traffic division did go out to look at this. What was the finding there? Could you summarize?
Well. Yeah, that intersection is narrow. And the the corner signs, but when we go out, measure everything for switch. No parking on the other side. Take care of that as well.
Okay. Any discussion from the board, questions or comments? Okay, I'd look for a motion then to install a no parking here to corner sign on Woodland Avenue as outlined. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, Mary Street and Sherwood Avenue. Okay, so this was a request for a 4-way stop sign at the intersection of Mary Street and Sherwood Avenue. I did have a discussion with both the traffic division and, BMTS. We discussed this briefly. It's likely that the traffic volumes at that intersection don't warrant making it a four-way stop. And also given the steep of the grade of the hill on Sherwood, adding a stop sign at the southwest part of the intersection, which would force drivers coming up Sherwood to stop. The consensus was that might create some additional safety issues there. I would like the opportunity, though, to pull the crash data from this intersection, given that the resident that wrote to request this had mentioned a car that had slid into their front yard. So I think I'd ask for this to be tabled until tabled for the next meeting so that we can do that. But before we do that, is there any discussion or questions from the board? Okay, I would look for a motion to table this then to the April meeting.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that'll be tabled. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next portion of the agenda. This is a request to make Woodland Avenue between South Washington Street and Mary Street into a one-way prohibiting westbound traffic. So the traffic board first considered this at last month's meeting. At that time, we had said that public input would obviously be an important next step on this. And following that meeting last month, the board sent letters to residents of the neighborhood that would have been directly affected by a change in traffic flow. Just to let them know that the board had received the request and to ask for their input. Since that time, the board has received more than 30 letters, emails, and calls from residents in response. So I want to thank everyone that took the time to contact the traffic board on this and share your perspective and input as residents who would be affected by any changes there. The deadline that we had asked residents to share input by was this past Friday, March 8th. So just this week, I forwarded the correspondence on to all board members. It sounded like all of that did come through in the large file. Okay, so I think obviously we'll need some more time to review the input that came in from residents and to consider it along with the crash data that we had pulled last time from BMTS and from Binghamton Police. So I would look to have this back on next month's meeting agenda. But before we do that, is there any discussion on this or comment or questions from board members? Okay, then I'd look for a motion to table this agenda item to the April meeting.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, 65 Pine Street. This is a request for a curb cut and apron for residential property at 65 Pine. This was also first brought before the board at last month's meeting. I believe we had forwarded it to the engineering department for review. Ron, did your department get a chance to review the request?
I did not.
Okay. How would you like us to proceed? Do you want us to hold until April?
Yeah, let's hold it until April,
Okay,
please.
okay. Any discussion or comment from the board? I'd look for a motion to table.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So table then remains with the engineering department for review. The last item on our agenda, this has been a standing item for Oak Street. This is the item that Mr. Richmond was here to address the board on. The last correspondence that we had earlier this week, I believe we're going to try to get a meeting on the books with any members of the traffic board that are interested, school district personnel, the Office of Emergency Services, who Mr. Richmond mentioned was here and worked with the city to get additional signage on Oak Street, BMTS, and the Health Department. The Health Department is the entity that OES has been working with on some potential funding for that area. But this area and the request for a mid-block review sort of warrants for a mid-block crosswalk really warrants a more comprehensive review. And I think it'd be helpful to have all of those different entities at the table and to discuss this. Any discussion at this time from board members? Okay, then I just ask that this be tabled and kept on the traffic board meeting for April, and we will look to meet with those entities in the interim. But for now, is there a motion to table?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any further business or comments, discussion from board members? Then I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.